Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
This happened a few years ago when I worked at McDonald's near several schools. Most of my co-workers were high school kids just trying to make some extra cash. When summer vacation started, we ran into a problem. Employees would take their breaks, grab some food, and then hang around in the kitchen chatting with their friends who were still working. It was bad for productivity and created health hazards, with people not washing up before returning to food areas. Our manager created a rule. If you're on break, you stay in the break room until your break is over. No exceptions. This worked until school started again and our staffing changed. With fewer people working, our order times would shoot up during rush periods. Management relaxed the break room rule so employees could cut their breaks short to help during rushes. Then the district manager found out. He was angry and doubled down on the original rule. He added that anyone caught working during their break would be written up or even fired. Company policy mandated breaks, and he wasn't going to risk any labor violations. April 20th is busy in fast food. This particular day, we were swamped from the moment we opened. It was so bad that we had to call in help from other stores. Even the regional and district managers showed up to help. At first, things were going well. We were keeping ticket times under 2 minutes. Then my break time arrived. I sat down in the break room, unwrapped my burger, and started browsing my phone. Just as I took my first bite, I heard the commotion start. Someone had walked in and ordered 47 double quarter pounders. These weren't pre-made burgers either. This was right after McDonald's started making all quarter pounders fresh to order. Before the kitchen could process that, someone in the drive-thru ordered 75 20-piece nugget meals, 1,500 chicken nuggets. I could feel the panic from the kitchen. I was sitting in my chair, scrolling through my phone and eating my meal while the kitchen struggled. As ticket times started climbing, the district manager burst into the break room. He told me to end my break early and help in the kitchen. I reminded him that, according to his own rules, I could be written up or fired for doing what he was asking me to do. Then I went back to my phone, trying to enjoy the remaining 10 minutes of my break while the chaos continued outside. Next, the regional manager walked in. He told me if I didn't get out there right away, he would fire me. The other employee on break with me reacted to the threat. She jumped up, clocked in early, and rushed to help despite having 10 minutes left on her break. Later, she was written up for breaking the rule, which showed I made the right choice. I sat there finishing my meal while the managers fumed and the kitchen struggled. The people who made the huge orders only took what had been made after 30 minutes and got refunds for the unmade food, nearly $150 each. Customers with smaller orders were given gift cards for their patience, but many just left without their food. The store paid out almost $1,500 in gift cards that night. Because so many customers left their orders, we had nearly $5,000 in food waste. All the closing staff went home with boxes full of burgers, fries, and nuggets. The regional and district managers were transferred to different regions after this, and the break rule was changed to allow employees to clock back in early during rushes, but only at the manager's choice. Since I was the only employee who stood against both managers during the disaster, I was given free meals and drinks until I moved away from my hometown. When I visit friends and stop by that McDonald's, some of the employees who remember me still give me the manager discount. When my girlfriend and I moved into our first house together, we adopted a big, goofy Labrador mix from the shelter. We named him Buddy, and he quickly became the center of our world. Our neighborhood seemed perfect at first. Quiet street, decent-sized yards, friendly people. That is, until the family next door decided that our dog was the perfect target practice for their kids' new paintball guns. It started one weekend afternoon. I was inside doing dishes when I heard Buddy yelp loudly. I ran outside to find him cowering by our back door, a bright blue splatter on his golden fur. From over the fence, I could hear kids laughing. I walked to the fence and peered over. Two boys, probably around 12 and 14, were holding paintball guns and giggling. I asked them if they had shot my dog with their paintball guns. The older boy responded dismissively, asking what if they had. I told them that wasn't okay and that they had hurt Buddy, asking them not to do it again. The younger boy just called Buddy a stupid dog. They walked away, still laughing. I cleaned Buddy up, checked that he wasn't injured beyond a bruise, and decided to talk to their parents. I knocked on their door that evening and a woman answered. I introduced myself as their neighbor and explained that her boys had been shooting paintballs at my dog. I asked if she could talk to them about stopping this behavior. She dismissed my concerns, saying kids will be kids and suggesting my dog was probably fine. I explained that it wasn't fine, that paintballs hurt, and my backyard was private property. She argued that the boys needed somewhere to practice with their Christmas gifts and suggested my dog should be kept inside anyway. I insisted that my dog had every right to be in our fenced backyard without being shot at. At that point, a man appeared behind her and asked what the problem was. I explained the situation again. He downplayed the issue, saying the paintballs were biodegradable and suggesting I build a higher fence if I was worried. Then they closed the door in my face. The next day it happened again, and the day after that. Different colored splatters on Buddy's fur, on our patio furniture, even hitting our kitchen window once. Each time I went over, the parents brushed me off with increasingly rude responses. During one visit, the woman suggested that maybe if my dog didn't bark so much, the boys wouldn't be so annoyed with him. Another time, the man claimed they had lived in the neighborhood longer and implied I should adapt to their ways. I tried everything. I called the non-emergency police line, but they said they couldn't do much unless the dog was seriously injured. I talked to other neighbors who sympathized but admitted they'd had their own issues with his family and stayed clear. Buddy was becoming afraid to go outside. He'd cower near the door looking around nervously before venturing out to do his business. It broke my heart. My girlfriend and I discussed moving, but we'd just bought the place and couldn't afford to sell so soon. We were at our wits' end. Then while cleaning up after a 4th of July barbecue at my brother's place, I had an idea. He had some leftover fireworks. Nothing huge, just some Roman candles and those little tanks that spin around shooting colorful sparks. The next Saturday, I heard the familiar sound of the paintball guns firing and Buddy's yelp. This time, instead of confronting them directly, my girlfriend took Buddy inside while I went to the garage. I set up 3 of the little tanks right along the fence line, aimed in their general direction but not directly at them. I lit the fuses and ducked behind our shed. The tanks sprang to life, spinning and shooting bright sparks toward their yard while making loud whistle noises. I heard screaming almost immediately. The younger boy was shouting in fear, asking what was happening. The older boy was crying out for his parents to help them. The fireworks weren't close enough to hurt them, but they were unexpected and noisy. From my hiding spot, I could see the boys dropping their paintball guns and running toward their house, crying hysterically. Minutes later, there was pounding on our front door. The woman demanded to know what I thought I was doing, claiming I could have hurt their children and threatening to call the police. I asked what she would report me for, simply shooting fireworks in my own yard. I pointed out that, according to their logic, this was just kids having fun, and at least I had aimed at the ground, not at living creatures. The man insisted this situation was different. I countered that it wasn't, explaining that their kids had been shooting my dog for weeks despite my requests, and they had done nothing to stop it. When the woman tried to minimize the situation by saying they were just paintballs, I responded that mine were just small fireworks and no one got hurt, except my dog, who had bruises from their kids' fun. I then showed them photos I'd been taking of Buddy's injuries and the paint splatters all over our property. I told them that I had documented everything and had security camera footage of their kids repeatedly shooting into our yard after I had asked them to stop. They hadn't known about the security camera I'd installed after the first incident, and they went pale. The man suggested we might work something out. I laid out simple terms. Their kids must never shoot at my dog or into my yard again. I warned that if they did, I wouldn't bother talking to them next time, but would go straight to the police with my evidence. They left without another word. The paintball attack stopped immediately. A week later, I saw the boys outside with their guns, but they were shooting at targets they'd set up in their own yard far from our fence. Buddy is happy in the backyard again, and I'm keeping those security cameras running, just in case. This happened back in the 90s when no one had caller ID. I was a stay-at-home mom taking care of our home while my husband worked long hours in the city. He took the train every day, leaving early and coming home late, tired from the daily grind. My husband had this BMW. One morning, he dropped it off at the dealership near the train station for routine maintenance. The dealership gave him a ride to the station, and that evening, he picked up the car and came home. A few days later, it started. The phone rang while I was folding laundry. I answered, and a woman said she was calling from Market Research Associates for BMW. She asked to speak with my husband. I told her he wasn't home and offered to help, but she said they needed to speak directly with him about his service experience. When I offered to take a message, she said they would call back when he was available. I suggested after 7 p.m. That evening, when they called back, my husband was on the couch, tired from his workday. The survey woman called again asking for my husband. I covered the phone and told my husband about the BMW survey. He said he didn't have the energy for this and asked me to tell them he wasn't interested. I told this to the caller, who said they would call back at a more convenient time. But they didn't just call back once. They called again and again, sometimes twice in the same day. It became a game of phone tag that went on for weeks. During one call, I answered and recognized the same script from the survey woman. I reminded her that I had told them many times that my husband didn't want to participate, and I asked her to stop calling. She said sorry, but their policy required them to speak directly with him to confirm his refusal. When I told her he was refusing through me, she just said they would try again another time. This went on for over a month. They called at least 30 times. I started to dread the phone ringing. I asked the marketing company to stop. I asked my husband to just take the call and get it over with, but he was stubborn. When I asked my husband to please just take the survey, he said he wouldn't waste his free time on some corporate survey and told me to keep telling them no. I told them they wouldn't take no for an answer and were driving me crazy. Finally, I had enough. I drove to the BMW dealership to end this nightmare. The woman at the front desk barely looked up when I approached. I explained my problem about the survey calls. She told me that was a separate company and there was nothing they could do. She was about to turn back to her computer when I saw something on the wall behind her, a large sign that read, "Attention customers. If you cannot give us a 5-star rating on our survey, please call our general manager directly." That's when I had an idea. The next time the phone rang, I was ready. The survey woman made her usual introduction and asked for my husband. I said speaking. She said she was calling for my husband, and I again said that was me. Confused, she again said she was calling for my husband. I asked if she was making fun of my name, which made her quickly say sorry for any confusion, and just like that, I was taking the survey. When asked about the service experience, I gave it 3 stars. The cleanliness of the facility, 3 stars. The staff, 3 stars. The value for money, 2 stars. With each rating, I could hear the worry in her voice. By the end of the survey, she was asking for feedback on how they could improve. I told her my disappointment was that their company had called my house over 30 times in the past month, refusing to take no for an answer and disrupting my daily life. The calls stopped after that. I later found out from a friend who worked at a car dealership that those surveys were tied to the bonuses of the service department. Anything less than 5 stars was considered a failure. Was it malicious compliance? Absolutely. But after a month of phone calls disguised as customer service, it felt like justice. 7 years later, I can find a touch of dark humor in what happened. Let me take you back to one of the most difficult periods of my life. At 18, I was starting to figure things out, college applications, part-time job at the local diner, and helping mom with my 3 younger brothers. We lived in a tiny town where everyone knew everyone's business. Just over 1,000 people meant that news traveled fast, whether you wanted it to or not. Then came the day that changed everything. My mom and three brothers were driving back from a baseball tournament when a truck ran a stop sign and slammed into their car. I was working that afternoon, and I'll never forget my manager's face when she told me I needed to go to the hospital immediately. When I arrived at the Level 1 Trauma Center an hour away, the scene was chaos. My mom and middle brother, 15, were shaken but mostly okay physically. My oldest brother, 16, was awake but in terrible pain with multiple broken legs that would need surgery. And then there was my youngest brother, just 11 years old, who lay unmoving, connected to more machines than I could count. For the next 4 weeks, our lives revolved around that hospital. I'd drive back and forth, taking shifts with my dad, so my brothers were never alone. The whole town rallied around us, meals delivered daily, fundraisers for medical bills, prayer circles at the local church. Despite everything the doctors tried, my youngest brother never woke up. After 4 weeks of hoping for a miracle, we had to make the decision no family should ever face. The funeral was attended by practically the entire town, or so I thought. About 3 weeks after we lost him, my oldest brother had progressed enough in his recovery that he could get around with crutches. We decided to take a trip to Hobby Lobby, partly because we needed craft supplies for a memorial project, but mostly because we both needed to get out of the house, where every corner held memories. We were browsing through the scrapbooking section when I heard someone call my name. It was the mother of a girl I went to high school with. I recognized her immediately. She was on the Parent-Teacher Association and always organized the bake sales. She was beaming, her face lit up like it was Christmas morning. She excitedly told me how happy she was to see that my brother wasn't brain dead anymore and was up and walking around. Her words hit me like a truck. The store seemed to freeze around us. My oldest brother's face went pale and I felt my stomach drop to my feet. For a moment, I couldn't process what she had said. When I finally found my voice, I quietly told her that the brother she was talking about had died, and this was my other brother. The silence that followed was deafening. Her face changed from confusion to realization to horror as she turned red. She stammered out a quick apology. Without another word, she turned around and ran away, leaving her half-filled shopping cart behind. My brother and I just stood there, surrounded by decorative paper and glitter glue, trying to process what had just happened. After a moment, my brother looked at me and I looked at him. The absurdity of the situation suddenly hit us both, and we started laughing. Not happy laughter, the kind that comes when crying isn't enough anymore. We finished our shopping and headed home, telling my mom about the woman's expression, who also found a small smile despite her grief. In a town that small, I'm still not sure how she missed the news, the funeral, or the social media posts. Perhaps she had been out of town, or maybe she had confused the details of our family tragedy with someone else's. I never spoke to her again after that day, though I occasionally saw her around town. She would always quickly turn and walk in the opposite direction, which made things easier for everyone. That time in my life was surreal enough without adding awkward encounters at Hobby Lobby. The grief never fully goes away, it just changes shape. Some days are still hard, especially on the anniversary of the accident, but sometimes when the weight of loss feels too heavy, I remember the lady's face as she fled down the aisle of decorative pillows, and I find myself smiling through tears, because when you feel like crying, all you can do is laugh at the absurdity of it all. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.